Do you ever look around and think, wow, the world is a crazy place, and it just seems to get crazier and crazier? Ease your mind and take a break. This is Fuel for the Soul with John Giftah. We're a hub for inspirational Christian sermons, practical keys for Christian living, and Christian discussions and interviews. You'll be inspired to live the life that you were created for. Your host is a top-ranking podcaster, best-selling author, world record holder, aerospace engineer, life coach, evangelist, and founder of John Giftah International. Welcome to Fuel for the Soul with John Giftah.
Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of the Fuel for the Soul with John Giftah podcast, where I want to share a very, very important and encouraging as well as a powerful word for you to understand and take note with regard to your life. Many times when you look at our life, we look at our circumstances, we look at the things that are coming against, we look at opposition, we look at the disadvantages, we look at all the odds being against us, and we're looking at all of the negative things and look at us as saying, oh my goodness, because of this, there is a problem. Because of this, I am not able to reach my full potential. Because of this, I'm not able to see my business or my ministry grow. Because of this, this is actually working against me or working against my calling, against my purpose, against the ministry, against the church, against the community, against the business, against my relationship. Whatever you feel like, this is a word I believe is going to really, really help you understand a very, very important perspective. I'm going to talk to you from Philippians chapter 1, and I want to read to you from verse 12, and I'm reading to you from the NLT version, and this is what it says. The Apostle Paul is saying, and I want you to know, my dear brothers and sisters, that everything that has happened to me here has helped to spread the good news. Look at this. He says, everything that happened to me has helped to spread the good news. For everyone here, including the whole palace guard, knows that I'm in chains because of Christ. He says, everyone here knows that I'm in chains because of Christ. And because of my imprisonment, most of the believers here have gained confidence and boldly speak God's message without fear. Now, look at this very, very, very important thing. The Apostle Paul here wants to go and preach the gospel without a doubt. And here he's imprisoned and he's in chains because of preaching the gospel. Right now, it seems like an unfair thing. He wants to preach the gospel. He wants to go and tell others about Christ, and he wants to do the right thing, the will of God, the ultimate plan of salvation to be told to the ends of the earth. But he's now in chain. It seems like a bad thing. It's like a setback. It's like, it's like a limiting factor. But here he says, because I'm in chain, because I'm in imprisonment, most of the believers here have gained confidence and boldly speak God's message without fear. Look at this. If the Apostle Paul was not in chain, he would be the only one preaching. Okay, he has one-man show going around preaching. Okay, and the others would still mind their own work and they would still be in fear. They will be like, oh, you know what, Apostle Paul, he can preach. I can't preach. But because of his imprisonment, there were many others who were doing the work on behalf of Apostle Paul. Are you getting what I'm saying? See, the Apostle Paul was feeling like a disadvantage or a limitation, a chain, imprisonment, but that actually helped in other people or more people going around preaching the gospel. Instead of being a one-man show, it ends up becoming more people going and preaching the gospel with boldness and confidence. You get what I'm saying? See, that's the thing I want you to understand, dear saints of God, that what you look at as a disadvantage, what you look at as a limiting factor, God is able to raise other factors or other things to super exceed and get his job done. That's what I want you to understand. Sometimes I've seen in my own life, sometimes, just to let you know, I work in a full-time corporate job and I run the ministry. I have the daily podcast. I have the Christian YouTube channel. I have the social media ministry. I go around preaching, whenever I'm invited to do that. Just a disclaimer, if you want to invite me to preach, I'm always welcome. And at the same time, I also have a motivational podcast on the other hand. So here's the thing I want you to understand, right? Like so many things. And there are times, there are people I know who actually don't follow my content. They don't follow my ministry, and they don't listen to every message or every episode or anything like that. But they always say this to me, John, I always admire your consistency, or I'm really inspired by the work that you do. How do you manage this? They're not, like, it's not the message I preach that inspires them. It's not my sermon, or like anything that I do. It's not my content that's making a difference in their life, but how I'm able to manage, or just inspired by my story. They are like inspired. You get what I'm saying. I want you to understand here, right? Like, sometimes indirect way of how God is going to use your story is how it's going to be a greater blessing. Like sometimes we want God to do it, like, a direct fashion, but sometimes God is an expert in using indirect fashion to get a greater job done. If the Apostle Paul was free to go preach the gospel, God could have healed, set him free, in a miraculous way, like he set Peter free and all of that. He could have done that, and maybe he could have gone around preaching, and people would have been amazed, and people will be listening to Apostle Paul. But in this way, you see, the fact that he was in imprisonment, the fact that he was in chains, was what actually propelled more people to go and preach the gospel. So the setback actually helped in becoming a setup for the preaching of the gospel. So the thing that's a disadvantage for you, the chains that you're dealing with, the opposition you're dealing with, that is going to be a greater testimony for you. Many times in my life, I'm like, I wish if this one area was solved, or I wish if I had more support, or I would have like this kind of an opportunity, or so many times I would feel. But then I come back to this, I'm glad I don't have that. I'm glad I don't have that much of support, or I have this opposition, or I'm glad I have these chains limiting and all these factors that are against me, because that inspires people more. Like, oh my gosh, you're working a full-time job and still run the ministry, you're still being consistent. That inspires them more than sometimes people just saying like, oh, you have all the time in the world, that's how you're doing what you're doing. You know what I mean? So that's the challenge I want to leave with all of you in this segment, that instead of looking at your setbacks and disappointments and hurts and all of those as a negative thing, think of how God is able to use that to be a greater blessing, to build his kingdom in and through your life. Amen. God bless you.
You've been listening to Fuel for the Soul with John Giftah. We hope you were blessed and inspired to live the life that God has for you. Make sure to subscribe to the John Giftah YouTube channel for regular uploads of sermons, skits, interviews, and more. Follow John Giftah on Instagram for regular inspirational posts. And don't forget to check out the best-selling books written by John Giftah, Who Am I?, which will help you understand your identity, and the latest #1 bestseller, Unveil Your Purpose, helping you discover your purpose and to start walking in it. Make sure to leave a rating and review, and be sure to share it with your friends and loved ones. If you'd like to donate, you can find the PayPal link in the description. And if you'd like to invite John Giftah to speak at your event or to get more details, go to the website at www.johngiftah.com. See you on the next episode of The Fuel for the Soul with John Giftah. God bless you.